Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday, and welcome back to another episode of More to Explore. Happy to see some regulars with us. Christina A., good morning. MW, good morning to you as well. My name is Brian Bird, and along for the ride once again is Explore.org's resident naturalist, Mike Fitz. And we have so much to talk about with the eagles and all the other nest cams, and it's also a great time to watch for beluga whales, huh, Mike?
Seasonal in nature. Some of them are active year round. One of the seasonal cams, though, that we wanted to highlight during today's broadcast is the Naknek River Cam in King Salmon, Alaska. And that's what we're looking at right now. So if you have questions about our cameras or you want to let us know what you're watching this week, drop those that information in the comments. We'll be watching for them during the broadcast today. And we are looking at, I think, live footage of the Naknek River in King Salmon, Alaska. In summertime, this camera, if it's live, there's like 2 million sockeye salmon swimming upstream past this camera spot in July. Those are salmon that are going upstream into Katmai National Park. Many of them will wind up at Brooks River, where we watch bears feasting on fish. But today, however, we're really waiting for the return of beluga whales in the river. About 15 miles upstream from Bristol Bay is where this camera is, and the Bering Sea. But this is still within reach of the tides. We have a chance to witness how beluga whales feast on fish when they have the opportunity. So it's not something where you're going to see beluga whales in the river year round or all the time, even in season. It's kind of a narrow window in spring. This feeding aggregation of whales takes place under specific conditions. So to help us learn more about that, I spoke with Sarah Bruce, park ranger at Katmai National Park in Alaska, and here's our conversation. Great to see you again, Sarah. Welcome back to Explore.org.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
So when I lived in King Salmon, I loved watching the whales in the springtime. It was just one of those things I looked forward to, watching the tides, watching the schedules, hoping that they would come upriver. We see it like a small subset of the whales from the Bristol Bay region moving into the Naknek River because perhaps 3,000 beluga whales inhabit Bristol Bay, but their appearance in Naknek River is really restricted to a short period of time. So, what brings beluga whales into the river as far upstream as king salmon and sometimes a little bit beyond?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about spring too. I call it Beluga Watch. So my friends who work on the river, closer to the river with views of it, I'm always like, can you guys just let me know when you see the whales in? So it's really fun for me too. The things that bring the belugas into the river, they're really looking for food. So they're chasing herring and smelts, two different kinds of small fish up into the river. The smelts and the herring both breed in freshwater. So the Naknek River is super long and it changes depending on where you are on the river. So the tide really affects it from the mouth of the river up to about where I call it kind of where the air taxis are, where you can see the FAA tower. But you can really, the tide really affects the river all the way up to the rapids, about halfway up the Naknek River. So we see the belugas chasing their food source up the river from Bristol Bay. So the herring, they are mostly marine fish, but they breed in freshwater. So they're coming up river to breed. As the tide helps to bring the herring up, the belugas will follow. And as the tide goes out, it's kind of bringing the herring down so that the belugas can go up and get an easier hunt for them too. The herring aren't only an important food source for belugas, but also for humans. We've been eating herring for thousands of years. They're an important spring food source after we've eaten all of our salmon and berries from the abundant fall. Herring and herring eggs are a traditional food to eat in the springtime to mix up the diet a little bit here.
And in general, when is the season of like the herring runs and the whale watching on the Naknek River? Like when might we watch the Naknek River cam and get a chance to see the whales?
It's typically in the springtime. Some things I would look out for. This year's been a little bit different. None of our rivers fully froze over. It was very warm this winter. Typically, what I look for is when the Savanoski River, which is way upstream, past Brooks Camp, up the Iliac Arm, once all of the ice from that river breaks up, comes down the Naknek Lake and into the Naknek River, that's when I start looking for beluga, because that means all of the ice is broken up. So they're not going to get trapped in the river or anything like that. Um, and so, yeah, typically when you see a lot of ice flowing down the river, that's when we're going to start looking for belugas. Also, we now have over 11 and a half hours of daylight up in Alaska. So when the daylight starts to get really long, I'll look for that. And then if you start to see like seals or sometimes you can see the different small fish jumping out of the water. That's a good sign that there's also beluga around. So those are kind of some of the signs that we look for to know when the belugas are coming up. And then also the tide. The Naknek River is really long. Mike, I think you said up to King Salmon, it might be like 15 miles of river. And so the tide affects it all the way up. And you need a really high tide for those animals to come all the way up from Bristol Bay, all that way into the fresh water. So we're looking at the tide tables, we're looking for the ice to flow, and we're looking for lots of daylight. And that's when we'll typically see whales.
Yeah, can you talk about the influence of the tides more? I mean, there's always water flowing through Naknek
Mm-hmm.
River, of course. Yet the whales, they come upstream only during specific conditions. So what
Yeah.
conditions are the belugas taking advantage of when they move upstream?
It's my understanding that it's after the tide has already been high and this tide is starting to come out. So it has to be a high tide for the belugas to come up because they need enough water. But it is easier to hunt when the tide is going down and dropping, because that's when all of those smaller fish, it's just easier to catch them when they're going down and the belugas are coming up.
One of the things that I've noticed too about the Naknek River in the king salmon specifically is that the tide comes in real quick. So
Oh, yeah.
once the tide overcomes the momentum of the river, it's like from low to high, it's like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a big shift, and I think that's kind of like the window that I really think is important to watch for the beluga whales. But that's not the only thing that people can look for. There's other clues, right? So what clues might cam viewers see that indicate beluga whales are moving upstream?
I think seeing seals is another big one. Usually, if there's a seal in the river, they're also hunting. So if I see a seal on the cam or something like that, I'm like, oh, the belugas are coming too, because they take the signs from the other animals that, oh, this might be an easy day to get food. Seals, maybe some, I've seen mink as well. Mink and river otter are also going to take advantage of that food source. And then when I've been on the river when the belugas are coming up, you can see the smaller fish, the herring and the smelt kind of jumping out of the river, just like a quick hop above the surface and back down. And that I think is them trying to get away from a predator. So to me, that predator is going to be a seal or a beluga whale or something like that. So seeing other animals and seeing those fish start to jump a lot will tell me that the whales are coming.
And what's the experience like for you to stand on the shore of the river and watch the whales coming upstream? For me, I loved getting up in those early morning tides, standing there really quiet. There weren't any airplanes in the air from the airport nearby, and just hearing the birds, hearing the gulls, the ducks that are in the water, and everything else. Those were really special moments for me. I'm wondering what it's like for you to experience that.
It's pretty surreal. I have a special place that I like to go. It's a public park kind of halfway between the mouth of the river and King Salmon. So not quite all the way down to Naknek, but you're standing up on a bluff, and so you get a really good view of the whole river. Um, and you just start to hear these little like puffs coming out of the water, and you can sometimes hear the whales talking to each other like in their clicks and other sounds that they make, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's like watching the aurora or watching the bears for hours on the Brooks River, where it's just kind of something magical to be able to witness nature in action as it's supposed to be happening. Katmai boasts intact ecosystems, and that includes the areas around Katmai, like King Salmon, Naknek, and other villages around. So, this intact ecosystem that we live in, we really get to witness Mother Nature in action as it is, quote unquote, supposed to be. So it's really magical. And I don't think I can think of another word to explain it, but it's really beautiful to see these whales. And then, of course, the baby whales, too. You're always looking to see. Belugas are very white, but the pups are quite gray. And so seeing those two, it's all just magic.
Absolutely. Your answer makes me want to be there this April to
Come on
watch
up.
come in. One final question for you, Sarah. I know our bear cam audience will want to know this, so I feel like I got to ask. Have you seen or heard about any bear activity in the King Salmon area this year? It's about that time of the year when maybe some of the early risers are going to be coming out of their dens.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier. It's been a really weird winter this year. It's been pretty warm. Back in January, it was in the 40s and raining. You guys see snow behind me now, but this is the first snow that I've actually seen in months. This happened Sunday. It's now Tuesday, but it's been a very strange winter where it hasn't been very warm. It hasn't been very snowy. So I actually heard reports of bears into late December. And then I heard rumors of a bear kind of near our landfill a couple of weeks ago. So some super short sleepers out there. If they went to sleep at all, I'm not really sure. But yeah, this warming climate that we're in has really shifted the way that we're experiencing winter in the subarctic. So it'll definitely start to affect the bears here pretty soon as well.
Well, Sarah, thanks so much for your time, and I'm glad there's a little bit of daylight, right now, because I don't think we could have done this 2 or 3 weeks ago. It would have been too dark for
No.
you to be outside, right? So, glad you were able to step outside, show us a little bit of the king salmon terrain there, and thanks for your information.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here. Looking forward to the bear season.
Thanks again to Sarah Bruce for sharing her insights about the beluga whales. Sarah and her team will be back with us this summer for the return of the brown bears. Right now, though, you can watch for the whales this spring on the Naknek River Cam, brought to you by Explode.org and Katmai National Park. And thanks to all of our webcam viewers who have been watching the cams over the last several years, we've been able to predict with, I think, reasonable certainty when the beluga whales will arrive in king salmon in April when the tide is high enough. According to that information, really the tide needs to be predicted to reach about 2.4 feet or higher. So we have a graph that'll help to illustrate this. And this is from data was collected from webcam viewers. The red horizontal line represents the 2.4 foot high tide level, and the blue vertical bars are the tide levels when we've seen the whales on the cam. The 2.4 foot high tides seem to really be the threshold for whales to swim as far upstream in the river as king salmon. Whales are not guaranteed to arrive during high tides at that level. So again, that 2.4 foot level, but they won't show when tides are lower than that. In fact, only once during our observations over the last several years have we seen whales when the tide was predicted to be lower than 2.4 feet. And that specific tide was predicted, I think, to reach 2.3 feet. Nor have we seen the whales on the cam after about 3 p.m. So the tides, like if it's a high tide in late afternoon or going into evening, those are usually lower. And also, it's just the time of the day when the whales are just deciding for whatever reason not to come upstream. So maybe the fish and the movements of fish are different at that time of the day too. I don't really know for sure, but yeah, we have a pretty good idea. So look for those tides to be 2.4 feet or higher, and look for them to be early in the day, especially if it's like a sunrise tide or in the morning. That after sunrise, that tends to be a really good time to be looking. Last year brought some of the best whale watching that I've ever seen on the cameras, like this footage here. I mean, for 2 or 3 hours, sometimes we were just seeing whales moving back and forth in front of the camera. So it was really amazing. Every year is different, though. So my curiosity about this season and what it'll bring is pretty high right now. But Brian, we got, I think, a few audience questions and some hellos to maybe talk about before we head into our next segment.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like someone is asking about the belugas.
Right. Yeah, we did get an audience question about the beluga whales. So somebody was wondering, is this a quick visit by the belugas? Where would they leave with the tide just after a few hours, or do they stay for multiple days? I think they're staying in the upper sort of region of Bristol Bay, and I should have prepped a map of the area to show everybody. But basically, if you can, it's a wedge of land in southwestern, or excuse me, a wedge of water in southwestern Alaska. That's the Bristol Bay area. Uh, and they're going to stay sort of locally. They're not going to stay in the river. They're going to head once the tide, is heading out. They're going to head back out, feeding and following fish, and they're going to stay in the local Bristol Bay area. They don't want to get stranded on any mudflats or anything like that. So they will stay nearby for sometimes over a few weeks or so. We might see them in the king salmon in Naknek areas. They may be gone from the river as far as king salmon for like a week, and then once the tides are good for them to come back, then they'll happen to come back. But we won't see them leaving the area completely or staying in the river. So they come into the river, they feed, they go back out to sea, and they'll do that depending on the tides. Yeah, so thanks for asking that question. And another person, Brian, asked a question about bears. Not surprisingly, we mentioned bears anytime on the show. Someone's like, I have a brown bear question. And somebody did ask about the famous family of the 910s. Number 910, she adopted her niece. And last summer, they were still running around together with her biological cub. So I was asked, do you think that 910 will have emancipated or separated from 910 Junior and 909 Junior this year? That remains to be seen. I think it's quite likely. Those cubs were pretty big, pretty healthy. So we won't know until we happen to see them, but I expect that family will have separated by the time we see them on the bear cams this year. So yeah, thanks for those questions. I know there's another one about eagles that I'm going to get to in just a little bit, but Brian, we had some hellos to get to as well.
Yeah, along with the Bears, we have so many more storylines to look at. But yeah, I want to give a shout out to everybody who tuned in today. Rolling Trouble, thank you for joining us from Washington. CL Robin, good morning to everybody. Read It Nation, hello, and Stephanie H, welcome back again. And Mike, as I just mentioned, we have so many storylines to watch on all of the nests. So let's get to it with Egg Watch.
Yeah, welcome to the March 24, 2025 edition of Egg Watch on Explode.org. There are a lot of updates to cover, including stories of success and loss that we've seen on our cameras this year. And the Eagles have really been giving us a lot to consider and watch for over the last couple of weeks. We'll start with the Decorah North Nest in Decorah, Iowa, with Mr. North and DNF. The eggs here, we said last time on More to Explore, hey, watch this nest because coming up, they're going to start hatching soon, and they are hatching right now. In fact, they've been hatching for a few days. Eggs began hatching during a snowstorm on March 20th. So, and I think maybe this is Mr. North underneath the snow.
Yeah, this is 3/19, just the day before.
Okay, so this is just before the eggs started to hatch. But yeah, protecting the eggs. And as of this morning, the eaglets remain in their eggs. There's the area's recent cold weather has slowed hatching in the nest, and the eaglets are really taking their time. Although I think we should see them emerge from their shells pretty soon. In fact, somebody was asking, I would like to know your thoughts on the Decorah nest where the eggs have been in hatching mode for a few days now. What is the eaglet's chance of survival after all of these days? I think it's pretty good. Overall, Mr. North and DNF, they are experienced parent birds. They know to let the eggs and the eaglets in there do their thing on their own time. And when a baby bird emerges from the egg, it hasn't completely exhausted its energy reserves. Like it has a little remaining yolk still within its body. So eaglets, I think they build in a little bit of a safety mechanism just in case there isn't food available for them right away. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing those eaglets pop out of the eggs. They're doing so at their own pace. It just seems to be a lot slower than we're used to. So check out that camera. It's the eaglets are hatching right now. Nearby in North America, in that region at least, the Trempealeau Eagles in Trempealeau, Wisconsin, Mr. and Mrs. T, they laid 3 eggs, and expected hatch there is in mid-April. So they're just hanging out, incubating the eggs right now. I don't think a whole lot of drama there, except for the weather that they've had to protect their eggs from. In the other corner of North America, in the Channel Islands region of California, lots of activity happening there on our eagle nests in that region. The Fraser Point nest, let's start there because they laid 3 eggs. One of them broke on during the incubation process, but one of them hatched recently. In fact, just yesterday. So the first egg in this nest hatched on March 23rd, and we're on hatch watch now for the remaining egg. So if you want to see another opportunity or another chance, if you want another chance for a baby eagle to see that baby eagle emerge from its egg, check out the Fraser Point nest right now. Staying on Santa Cruz Island in Channel Islands National Park with Jack and Audacity at the Sauce's nest. They laid 3 eggs actually in that nest. 2 of them broke, but one of them survived incubation, and they hatched that egg on March 14th. So this is their single eaglet, and congratulations to Audacity and Jack, because they've really struggled keeping viable eggs in the nest over the last few years, but their commitment and dedication has paid off this year, and it's been really great to see. I know a lot of people were really looking forward to seeing Jack and Audacity caring for an egg or an eaglet this year, and I think we might be able to expect an early fledged June from that bird. So that's a long way away, but something to look forward to. And then the Two Harbors nest in Catalina Island, California, so outside of the national park, but still in the Channel Islands region, with Chase and Cholin there. They had both of their eggs unfortunately break last week. So there are currently no eggs in this nest right now. They're both older eagles. They're both part of the initial bald eagle nesting restoration effort in the Channel Islands region, and they've nested here for more than 20 years. So it sucks for them this year, but they definitely are experienced birds. They know what to do. I think we can probably look forward to more nesting attempts from them in the future. I don't know if they're going to have any more eggs this year. They could, but if they don't, yeah, certainly I think we can look forward to watching them succeed next year. So that's, I think, it for our bald eagles right now, but we have Canada geese nests to take a look at as well. So 2 nests in Decorah, Iowa. Nest 1 has 6 eggs in it. The most recent one laid on March 17. And Canada geese delay incubation until they lay all of their eggs. So once incubation begins, the eggs typically hatch in about 28 days. So maybe on nest 1 here, we can expect that the goslings to start to hatch around the week of April 14. And then the second nest in that area too, in Decorah, Iowa as well. These are both in abandoned eagle nests. 4 eggs in that nest right now in NB2. Seems like the female there is incubating the eggs. So I think, looking at that 28-day time frame, maybe the 3rd week of April is when we'll see goslings start to hatch there. And those are also, it's a really short window for hatching and for them leaving the nest. So sometimes it's a short 24-hour window between when the eggs hatch and when they end up leaving the nest. Changing gears though, looking at birds of prey with our peregrine falcons. Just one nest that we're watching right now. Hopefully we'll have more peregrines in the near future, but Beau and Barb in Baltimore, Maryland. They have 4 eggs in the nest currently. The last egg was laid on March 18, and incubation in this species lasts about 30 days. So I think we can expect hatch maybe for the first egg somewhere around April 9, maybe at the earliest or so. Our great horned owls, though, are back. And this is new to our Egg Watch segment and to Explode.org, where Cameron just went live, I think, last week with Hootie and Wonky in Charlo, Montana. Wonky is the female. She is sitting on the nest consistently, which means she has 1 or more eggs to incubate. The incubation period for great horned owls is between 30 and 37 days, with an average of about 33 days. And the female is the only bird that provides incubation. So in that time, the male is bringing her food. And the expected hatch date for this nest is unknown as far as I know. And since we can't see into the nest, we're going to have to look for other behaviors that indicate Wonky has a hatching egg in there. After hatching, the female great horned owls, they'll brood the owlets for about 2 weeks, so they'll continue to stay in the nest. She'll tear food into small pieces and feed the young bill to bill. Males continue to bring all food to the nest, at least until the female terminates brooding. And last year, this pair's eggs hatched in mid-March. So maybe they're a little bit behind schedule this year, but keep watching. The only way we're going to know is to find out. And then as we head towards the conclusion of our Egg Watch segment here, some wading birds to check out on the Delmarva Peninsula, that section of Maryland. Great blue herons, we're watching herons in rookeries there. That's where many breeding pairs make nests in a small area. Both males and females incubate eggs in our great blue herons. Similar to the owl nest, though, the great horned owls, we can't see into the heron nest, so we don't know how many eggs might be in it, but incubation lasts about 27 days. And herons also begin incubation immediately after laying an egg, which means even though they might have more than one egg in a nest, the chicks their hatching will be staggered. It'll happen over several days. And brooding by the parents can last 3 to 4 weeks. And then finally, we're not watching a specific nest at the spoonbill and alligator cam in St. Augustine, Florida, but there's lots of wading birds to watch there. And so check it out. It's going to get busier there as we head into April. And we'll be following these nests and other nests in the coming weeks, including more peregrine falcons, hopefully, the return of ospreys and other birds. So be sure to go to explore.org anytime to watch the devotion of these birds to their eggs and offspring.
Awesome. So much happening on all the nests. And we actually have a pretty exciting announcement, speaking of the bald eagles. But first, we have our other shows coming up this week. Don't forget that tomorrow on Tuesday, we have the AfriCam show. If you feel like going on a virtual live safari, that'll be at 7 a.m. Pacific. And then on Thursday, we have the Wild Moment show to see all the best highlights of the AfriCam cameras. And the exciting announcement for a brand new live event, we're going to have, if you're familiar with the play-by-plays for the brown bears, we're going to have our very first bald eagle play-by-play with Raptor Resource Project and, of course, Mike.
That's right. I'm looking forward to this. John Howe and Amy Reese from the Raptor Resource Project will be my co-hosts. The play-by-plays will be similar to our Bear Cam play-by-plays. So we'll mix live footage with our commentary, and then we'll break down and review recorded clips. We'll focus on the suite of cams brought to you, everyone, by our partnership with the Raptor Resource Project. We also made a Q&A forum for people to ask us questions in advance for those broadcasts. So if you're on the Raptor Resource cameras, look for moderators to be sharing that link for our Bald Eagle play-by-plays. And we hope to have at least one play-by-play every other week after our first one. So maybe 2 or 3 in April, and we'll be going through May and into June when a lot of the birds that we watch on the Raptor Resource cams start to fledge and leave the nest.
Yeah, totally. And also don't forget that you can contribute to the Impala Hippo study through March 26th. Coming up to the end of it, but you still have a couple days to participate.
Yes, there's just a couple of more days when you can participate. Scientists are working with our webcam partner, Impala Live, to find out if hippos communicate through ground vibrations. Elephants have that ability, but no one has investigated that possibility in hippos. So if you want to help gather observations for the study, go to the Impala Live cams on explore.org. Make sure that you are signed in so you can take snapshots of what you see. Watch the cams for hippo activity until March 26. Then take snapshots of the hippos when you see. Take a snapshot, complete a short questionnaire about the hippo behavior after you do so. You can find the link to that questionnaire in the pinned comment in the chat on explore.org for the Impala Live cameras, or you can ask a moderator for it. Since researchers need to correlate the behavior of the hippos with any of the seismic data that they're gathering, then they need to know what the hippos are doing when you take the snapshot. For example, pay attention to whether the hippo is moving in any way, if it's involved in any social interactions, whether friendly or aggressive, and what types of noises it's making, things like grunting or snorting or honking or roaring. And then also, just relax and enjoy the scene. Hippos are fun to watch. They're fascinating animals. So it's worth tuning in no matter whether you're participating in the survey or not. But thanks to everyone who has participated so far.
Awesome. And just to wrap up the show here, in the end, we wanted to bring back one of the fan favorite segments of Neighborhood Nature. And Mike, you had a pretty interesting sighting of lynx tracks.
That's right. Yeah, it's... We're past the peak of winter in my corner of North America. The landscape, though, can still feel kind of barren. I mean, this was just from a couple of weeks ago or so. The plants and insects, they're dormant while this weather is going on. The birds, they're scattered, they're few in number, and the storms can be really fierce. I do love winter, but this is one of those days that it just wasn't pleasant to be outside. Uh, but the land, it's really alive still, even during these moments. I really only need to pay attention to the evidence in my neighborhood to look for my active neighbors. And one of my winter pastimes is searching for and following animal tracks in the snow, which reveals the presence of organisms that I rarely see with my own eyes, especially some of those more elusive mammals. So near the end of a day-long ski through the forest near my home, I found a set of lynx tracks crossing my trail. I find one or two sets of lynx prints in my neighborhood every year. There's not many lynx in this area. They have big home ranges. They live in fairly low densities in their populations overall. And blowing snow from the day before obscured some of these prints' finer details. I recognize this trackway as a lynx due to the size of each track and the stride between the tracks. But let's look at other tracks that I found from a few years ago. So, like for example, these are larger than the preceding photos, and they help to illustrate just how big their feet are. Lynx paws are like snowshoes. They keep them afloat on top of snow, which makes a lot of sense for this species since they prefer to live in spruce fir forests where snow is abundant and their primary food are snowshoe hares. In deep and soft snow, the toes of lynx often splay out to maintain flotation, and this creates a unique cross-shaped pattern in the snow. No other North American mammal really makes a track quite like that. So with the arrival of spring, snowpack is melting. Sometimes it doesn't, really leave my area that's completely until May. In fact, tomorrow or tonight, we're supposed to get maybe up to 4 to 6 inches of more snow. But when the snow eventually leaves, really the character of the forest changes. And yeah, this is that cross-shaped uh, imprint of a lynx track. So when you see something like this, the lynx was moving in this photo from left to right, but that's distinctive. So you know that you've seen a lynx when you see it making that track. But yeah, when the snow melts, the forest changes. The plants, they're breaking dormancy. The bird song comes back. The mammals in my neighborhood, though, they suddenly become more mysterious and elusive since they're not leaving tracks in the snow anymore if there's no snow on the ground. So I really do try to relish the opportunities to get to know my mammal neighbors when I can. And sometimes winter brings the best opportunities for me to do that. Brian, you've been paying attention, though, I've been told, to your neighbors, but some avian neighbors, that is.
Yeah, definitely. I've been posted up a bird feeder. I've been trying to pay more attention to who they are. I've definitely been using the Merlin Bird ID app to see our little house finch here. And I didn't get a good video of it, but I did actually see a yellow-rumped warbler, which I learned is, more of a migrating bird, which is very, very cool to see. And of course, the weather is very much different here in Southern California. And I did get to hang out with my tortoise, my pet Herman tortoise here. And he loves when the weeds grow, and he definitely loves just to munch on them. So wanted to share that with everybody. And with Neighborhood Nature, we want to see what's going on in your backyard. So send us your clips and photos of what you see. You can send it to feedback@explore.org, or you can use our feedback form to send us your clips and any cool moments that you see on the cams. But that is our show today. That's all we've got. I want to give another special shout out to all of our volunteer camera operators and moderators. And of course, a special thank you to Mike Fitz for joining me once again. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. And until then, happy exploring.